Hines of the Talking Head with his sons Robin, Rick Nielsen of Cheap Trick and his son Miles, and heavy metal producer Tom Werman with his daughter Julia. And it's nice to have them all. In 1971 now, this was the #1 song of the year. The group was Three Dog Night.
I was a bullfrog.
Remember that? And their keyboardist was my next guest. He found himself in the center of the explosive world of rock and roll that you'd never know it at the time. He was also a father, here to tell us that the other side of rock and roll father, which is not so wonderful, not so cutesy-wootsy-wootsy, is Three Dog Night's Jimmy Greenspoon. Now, we've been hearing how easy it is to be a dad and be in rock and roll, and Ozzy Osbourne was sitting there with 3 little children out of a Gainsborough portrait. Yeah, right? And adorable, smart kids going. What was your life like? You were very young when you became a father.
I was 21 years old, yeah. I wasn't your stereotypical rock and roll father. My priority wasn't to come off the stage and call up the daughter and bring home presents. My priorities at the time were to get as high as humanly possible, to single out some bimbo on the side of the stage and go, "You're mine tonight."
Right.
And basically forget that I had a family at home.
And how long did that go on?
With that marriage?
Yeah, I guess.
About 2 or 3 years.
So what happened with your daughter?
Basically what I did was, and she's from my first marriage, she was only about 1.5 years, 2 years old when I walked out on my wife when we got divorced. So I never got to experience the joys of being a father. I never saw her growing up, because she was raised by her mom. I never got to
look back. Miss, you ever look back? Miss, you ever look back? This, I miss the school. This, I miss the school play. I miss those dumb pictures on the refrigerator, which is so wonderful.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, I do. Well, I'm making up for lost time now with my stepdaughters. I go to basketball games and take clippings out of the paper and do all that stuff. But
was it still, or is it still?
It was reflected with whom the artist would bring carrot juice to bring carrot juice to bring carrot juice to bring carrot juice to the studio, more likely than Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
And I'm working with Lita Ford now, who was an original member of the Runaways. She runs 5 miles every morning. She hasn't had a drink in God knows how long, and it's wonderful. I mean, we actually get work done. It may not be quite as much fun, but it's much more productive.
Yeah.
And I can come home and get up. And I do the same thing. I run every morning, and I see my kids.
What about drug use? Was it absolutely throughout the whole industry at that time?
Oh, yeah. It was like, I was coming out of the 60s and the early 70s, so every place you went, there were drugs.
What made you decide to clean yourself up? How much did you do? What did you do? How did you abuse yourself?
I did everything. I abused myself in so many ways, starting off in the 60s with doing about 400 acid trips, all the way to 10 years of heroin addiction.
How did you get off of heroin? It's the most difficult thing.
It was difficult. I had to reach inside myself and do it, but through an accident that I had when I had OD'd at the wheel of my car and hit a police car broadside, and numerous other things. We were doing a concert, and I OD'd in Hawaii, and my hand was numb. I was paralyzed, and of course that didn't stop me then. But things like that finally made me reach inside myself and say, "Hey, enough of this stuff. After 23 years, it's time to
clean up,
and grow up."
What about you?
What about me?
Were you doing much drugs? When did you realize it's time?
Our band were from the Midwest, and we were more like more beer drinkers than anything, and that was more of the deal with us. The drugs weren't so prevalent, but they were always around. If you wanted them, you could take them, but like none of us. I feel bad. I'm still in the rock business, and I never shot heroin. Gee, it's almost like you feel sort of embarrassed in some ways, because it's like you don't have the great story that I almost OD'd. None of us did, and we did it. We were involved in music, and music was #1, and our band was always, I think, a bit different. We'd have drinks after the show, but never before. And I'd meet so many bands that they couldn't do the show unless they're completely trashed.
Was that the way you were?
I was trashed all the time.
Trashed all the time.
I never let it get in the way of my performance. I hit it very well, so I'd go on stage, just completely out of it, and then as soon as the show was over, boom, just fall over.
What about you? In between poetry readings.
We've all had our experiences with drugs. Yeah, we grew up in the 60s, and it was kind of cool at the time, or at least we thought so. And
So what do you say now? Here we have
it's
two
hard,
children.
but you know, you get that great high and everything, but after a while it gets to be less fun. The buzz doesn't have the same pleasure that it used to, and the hangovers are unbearable, especially when you have to get up and make breakfast.
We really serve as the guinea pigs for our children, I think. You know, I mean, they know the stories. I mean, if we're even partially honest, they know at least about the recreational drug use and what it can lead to, and they read magazines and they see their friends too. I mean, I don't know how it happened. I didn't consciously program Julia and the other kids, hopefully when it comes to their time, to avoid drugs. She tried this and that, you know, I'm sure. It was done before I even knew it. And she definitely did not want to follow in my footsteps.
I think it's a smarter group coming up now. Much more
The
healthy.
good thing is to have dads that you can talk to it about, because I could just go to my dad and say, you know, Dad, I tried this, and this is how I felt about it, and he's not going to say, well, you're grounded, go to your room, and I'm going to watch everything you do. And he'll talk to me about it, so I'm not threatened, and I'm not scared to talk to my dad, and I think that's another really good thing about having dad in the music industry.
We're going to talk more about what it's like today and more about your daughter with your problems, and then I want to know what everybody's getting their fathers for Father's Day, okay? That's where I'm at. Very shallow. We'll be back in a moment, so stay with us.
That you ever do.